What is up, everybody? This is Dr. Andrew Kim, MD, and thank you for joining another episode of the Insomniacs Livestream. What is up? Thank you guys for joining in. My name is Dr. Andrew Kim. I'm a board certified psychiatrist. For all of you subscribers to my channel, I thank you so much for the ongoing support. And for those of you who have not subscribed, please like, please follow. I'll be doing these live streams every Tuesday and Saturday nights, 10:30 Central, 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So today's topic, it is one of the biggest stories that are out there. The UnitedHealthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was murdered and gunned down about 3 days ago, this past Wednesday, in Manhattan, the Manhattan area. And this has drawn a huge response, a mixed response from those in the public, those in the media, those on social media. Okay, so before we get into it, look, I am not going to show any kind of gruesome, graphic video clips of the actual shooting itself, but we are going to be talking about the shooting, more so the outcry and the reaction, which is what I'm interested in, because we are getting a lot of people in both the media and especially social media who are basically almost praising the shooter, who is still yet to be found. They are saying that this person is justified, they're a national hero, that they should erect statues of this person. So my question for you is, what is your reaction to these reactions? You know, do these folks have, are they justified in how they feel? Because look, our healthcare system is broken. Let's just say that our healthcare system is broken. So I'm not obtuse. I understand where this anger is coming from, but is it justified that this CEO of UnitedHealthcare, should be viewed as the scapegoat, where his death, his murder, his homicide should somehow, be acceptable and be okay? So let's dive into it. So again, I'm not going to show any graphic video clips, but for those of you who don't want to hear about the topic of death or the recent homicide shooting, warning you. Oh, thank you, Bosco, for joining in. Appreciate you for even coming in and listening. So we're going to talk about the human psychology of kind of the reaction we're getting to the recent UnitedHealthcare CEO shooting. So thank you for joining, Bosco. Hope you can stay tuned for a few minutes here. So in summary, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare Group, the healthcare insurance branch of United, the parent company, this CEO, Brian Thompson, was specifically sought out, targeted, assassinated in cold-blooded murder on the streets of New York in Manhattan about 3 days ago from the time of this recording. Very brief summary for those of you who are not aware of this story. He was at some kind of conference in the New York area. It was around 6:35 in the morning when he stepped outside the hotel. There was a masked gunman in a hoodie who had a pistol. The pistol had a suppressor, or I guess in pop culture, some people call it a silencer, but the appropriate term is a suppressor, to dampen or lower the sound of a gunshot. And it seems like they also went out of their way and probably used, I don't know if it's confirmed, but from what I can tell and from my own firearms knowledge, likely used what are called subsonic rounds of ammunition. And subsonic rounds are ammunition that are specifically designed to have lower pressures, to basically exert a lower sound, lower volume of sound, so that it could be, shot more quietly, basically. And because of that, it also exerts less pressure, so that the blowback on the top of a semi-automatic pistol may not rack back all the way. And you can see in the video clip, for those of you who've seen it, the slide of the gun would get stuck and he'd have to re-rack it several times, and shot it about 3 times. Now, here's the interesting part as well. Another interesting detail shortly after the shooting occurred, after this murder occurred, was that apparently there were words that were inscribed on the casings of each bullet of those 3. I believe it was deny, depose, defend, I believe. So correct me if I'm wrong, audience, but I think those were the 3 words that were inscribed, meaning there was even a message sent essentially almost leaving clues or leaving kind of a motive to some degree. And some are connecting those three words to, it wasn't exactly the same three words, but I think 2 out of the 3 words were on the title of a book that came out maybe a couple years ago. I could be off on the math. That was written by an academic about the insurance industry and kind of the tactics used in the health insurance industry to essentially deny claims, to not make payments, and by not paying and not covering things, how profiteering is happening in the insurance industry. So some are hypothesizing and connecting that that's what the words on the casings of the ammunition was referring to. So pretty wild and crazy story. Now, again, I probably didn't do it justice. You can probably go on every major media outlet, social media outlet, and you will find much more details, much more nuance to what I just described there. But what I want to get into today with you guys, for those of you listening live, for those of you who are going to be seeing this on a recording, is just the reaction that we're seeing in social media, the reaction we're seeing in media, maybe the reactions that you're feeling yourself, maybe reactions you're hearing from friends and family as people are talking about this big story. And what's pretty interesting and interesting, concerning, I don't know how you want to phrase it, is how many people are apathetic about the fact that this person died. How many people feel that this murder is somehow justified, that this person deserved it, how essentially, in my mind, this CEO, Brian Thompson, is almost being kind of the scapegoat or kind of this cathartic target for everyone's frustration, with the healthcare industry, with the insurance industry, with how broken our healthcare system is. And again, this isn't hyperbole. This isn't clickbait. Let's go through it. I queued up some images. So for those of you guys who are watching live, bear with me here. I'm going to put up some images from social media. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go through some of these comments just to show you what I'm talking about. So here, a random user on X says, the UHC or UnitedHealthcare shooter, I will erect statues in your honor. Okay, so MSNBC apparently was reporting that the backpack that the shooter was wearing at the time of the shooting was ditched in Central Park. I have no idea why. It was full of Monopoly money. And then people are saying they want to erect statues in Central Park to honor this shooter. So that's one example. Here's another one here. I hope the UHC CEO shooter is never identified and goes on to become a hero of American folklore for hundreds of years. Below that, there's a little bit more commentary, more so about the anger towards the industry, like I was referring to. It says, they're going to spend 100 times more manpower and money to find the UHC CEO shooter than they ever did investigating UnitedHealthcare's unlawful practices and the deaths they caused. Okay, so that's what I mean, right? And then let's take a look here. Some go even further. So again, for those of you who don't want to hear any kind of graphic content, I'm going to play a video clip. Supposedly, keyword, supposedly, this is a nurse working at some kind of healthcare facility or hospital, and they decided to post this on social media. And so this is, I believe, originally posted on TikTok, then reposted on X. So I don't know exactly who was the originator, but let me cue up this video clip. I had a hard time routing this through my audio mixer, so I'm going to play it on Bluetooth. So bear with me if the sound quality isn't the best. I'm going to crank up the volume the best I can. But let's take a listen to what this healthcare worker, supposed nurse, also has to say. Give me a moment here. I'm going to cue it up for you guys who are watching. All right.
This healthcare CEO is responsible for thousands of deaths of American citizens. I mean, he makes the terrorists look like Boy Scouts. That's what a joke this is. I think the shooter is a national hero. And that's one bedside nurse. Like I said, bedside nurse for 31 years. I've seen the changes in healthcare. It's pure garbage. Nobody gives a shit anymore. It's all for the almighty buck. And the rot starts at the top. And UnitedHealthcare, I did home care for a number of years, and I've been in people's houses who can't afford medicines, and they get denied. It's an absolute disgrace what goes on in this country. So to the shooter, thank you. You are a national hero. I hope they never catch you. Lay low, brother. Because you killed a rich guy, and they're going to come looking something hard. But to me, you're a national hero. And to the dead CEO, rotten hell, you piece of shit. Rotten hell, you piece of shit.
Okay, so I'm hoping that video clip played appropriately, and if it didn't, it looks like I was just staring to the air for about 35, 40 seconds. But if it didn't play, essentially there was a nurse on the screen on this selfie style TikTok video that just said, they've been in the thick of it, working in healthcare. They've witnessed kind of the craziness that happens with insurance. And says this shooter is a national hero, lay low, brother. The dead CEO of UHC can rot in hell. So that's kind of what the video was talking about. So hopefully you guys saw the vid, but that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? So, look, again, this isn't about clickbait or hyperbole. Like, this is what is being shared publicly on people's social media accounts, right? On Facebook, on X, on Instagram, etc. So played just fine. Oh, Andy, thanks for confirmation. Played just fine. Yeah, this technical stuff, I'm still getting used to all these soundboards and everything. So yeah, so you heard it, Andy, right? No hyperbole. Like, we have even healthcare workers in the industry that are saying this stuff. So let's open it up, right? I mean, for those of you viewers who are here, please chime in. For those of you who are watching this later after the live stream ends, put it in the comments below. I understand, right? I am not obtuse to how broken American healthcare is, how broken the insurance situation is, right? Just this past week, I dealt with a patient of mine. I'm trying to prescribe them an appropriate medication, denial. They said, fill out some prior authorization forms, which translation in layman's terms, I have to fill out a bunch of paperwork to argue for why that medication is justified. I had a very rational justification for it. Literally spent, 30, 45 minutes of work putting this letter and all this evidence together. Had my patient had to compile some paperwork. They wanted receipts. They wanted evidence of other meds filled. They had to do all this hunting. We both, as with teamwork, the patient and I put all this together, sent it over to the insurance company with aggregate of probably, at least close to an hour on my part, 30, 40 minutes on their part. Within about half an hour, we get a denial. Sorry, pick something else. I said, there isn't anything else, right? Everything else would be what's called off-label, meaning I would be using other meds that aren't even FDA approved to treat their condition. But they're saying because those options are cheaper, try your best with other options that aren't even approved for their conditions because those options are cheaper, even though maybe not as effective. Literally, this is what happened. So I get it. I mean, I get it in terms of like, I witness it every day, every week. This is the frustration. And look, for me, I'm not saying I'm the patient. It's even worse for the patient, right? I move on with my day. I go on to the next patient to try to do the best I can. They can't even get the treatment that I want to prescribe them. We got to figure out workarounds. How do we get this for you as cheaply as possible from some cash-only place that, doesn't mark it up too much, keeps the price close to wholesale? It's insane. It's insane. So I get the anger, right? So I understand where the anger is coming from. I understand why people are almost viewing the shooter as Robin Hood. That part, it doesn't go above my head. But my question for the audience here, for Frankie, for Andy, for Bosco, for those viewers who are watching is, does that justify murder? Does that make it okay that somebody lost their life? That now a father to children in his family are now fatherless because people think that it's justified because of the conduct and their anger and frustrations with how UnitedHealthcare, the insurance company, conducts itself. Right. And look, I don't know. I don't know Brian Thompson. I don't know his history. I've read some articles about how there's some controversy about potential, stock trading before antitrust laws or antitrust investigations were about to happen. So who knows? Like I don't even know the character of this person. I don't know this person. All I know is from the headlines of things I've read. I'm just asking, does that justify all those types of comments you've seen, the rhetoric and the emotions that are out there? Because the system is broken, America's frustrated, patients are frustrated, loved ones of patients are frustrated, physicians are frustrated, nurses are frustrated, but does that justify murder? Personally, I don't think it does. I'm just going to say it, right? And look, I'm not trying to take some moral high ground. I'm not, right? Because if you, like, I would be a liar. I would be a liar if I said there haven't been times in my life where someone out there has done some kind of egregious crime. And my attitude was eye for an eye. They deserve the death penalty. Just forget them, right? Oh, trust me, I've been there. I've been there. But at the end of the day, right, is this something where we should be promoting this type of behavior, saying it's okay, right? It's a slippery slope, in my opinion. It's a slippery slope. Because look, it ends up becoming this game, right? And maybe game's not the right word, because I think this concept is in itself not an inherently evil thing, but it's just a very slippery slope of moral relativism, right? Because if you say this is justified, I'm talking to people who are saying this is justified, right? Then what stops someone from saying, hey, you're the manager of a small family business and you make $100,000 a year, not 10 million like Brian Thompson, make $100,000 a year. I make minimum wage and I'm worn out. I'm dead tired. Me and my coworkers who are in the same situation, we feel abused by you. You know what? You should be murdered because it justifies and equalizes and causes some kind of justice for this injustice, right? Frankie says, no way, he probably wasn't evil, doesn't hurt children or innocent animals. So, well, again, slippery slope argument, right? I mean, what if we applied the same principles to major corporations, other major, like retail, right? It's funny because we have folks who are judging, saying these things, but they're posting on social media from their expensive PCs, from their Mac Airbooks and laptops, from their expensive cell phones that have precious heavy metals in them that are expensive, while they're wearing their jewelry with their diamond rings and their diamond earrings, in their designer jeans. I'm being serious, right? So then when we think about what I just said, these people out there are doing this kind of judgment with all of those kind of consumer goods that they're wearing. So why don't we apply that same principle to these major corporations, right? That run sweatshops to make these goods cheap and affordable for you to buy. For the concept of, it's been already well reported over the decades, like blood diamonds, right? For the engagement ring that you purchased at a quote unquote reasonable price, at the cost of probably child labor, indentured servitude, workplace abuses. For those precious heavy metals that are needed for processor chips that are mined with, again, cheap labor, right? So should we just, have assassins take out mid-level management executives at whatever, Nike and Apple and all these places that probably somewhere in their supply chain, there's abuse, there's fraud, there's whatever, right? So again, I'm just talking out loud. Where do we draw the line then, right? Justifying murders because we're unhappy about a broken system, about wrongs that have happened. Does that justify and equal out taking somebody's life in retaliation? Right. So no, I'm just asking honestly, because I get where the anger is coming from, but I think saying we should glorify a murderer shooting someone in cold blood, I think that's a slippery slope for our society. But again, that's me. That's my opinion, right? I understand where the anger is coming from. I get it. So that's why I just want to have a discussion. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. So again, for those of you who are here, put your comments. Feel free to text to the text line if you want to talk live on the live stream. And next topic, as others are chiming in. So I'd like to hear, right? I gave you kind of a personal anecdote about things I run into from the physician side of things when I get appropriate treatments denied. I'm not even talking about expensive, right? I'm not talking about expensive treatments, like reasonably cost treatments and interventions for, my patients. They get denied all the time. It's not a rare phenomenon. This is a weekly battle. I gave you the example about medications that I feel like are very appropriate for my patients. Like the example I gave earlier, right? Without obviously giving any kind of personal details, right? This was a situation where, the patient didn't want to be prescribed what are called controlled substances. Controlled substances are things like benzodiazepines, meaning like Valium, Xanax, or opioids like, Oxycontin, oxycodone, things that have abuse potential, tolerance building, dependency potential. Literally, both the patient and I didn't want to go down that route. We wanted to use something that was non-habit forming, that didn't have abuse potential, that was actually relatively affordable, not expensive even. That's what was denied. We had that denied. And they were saying it's actually cheaper and more affordable for me to then prescribe them meds that they don't want to be on, that have addiction potential and dependency potential. Where is the common sense in that? It makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense. Yeah, Andy's chiming in. It's indeed a slippery slope. The bar for justifying violence will only get lower from here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, again, that's our opinion. It sounds like Andy and I have similar opinions. Bosco says no, absolutely not justified. So, it's crazy. But this is what I'm talking about, right? This, to me, to now kind of shift this conversation, not just about the concept of should this be justified or not, is just, what is this a reflection of, right? What is this anger, this outcry from the public, the phenomenon of viewing the shooter as Robin Hood? Like, where is this coming from? I think it's coming from the frustration with the healthcare system in general, right? So let's go back and keep talking about, the insurance phenomenon, right? So medications that I prescribe, Frankie also chimes in, it could have just been a jealous lover. Murdering someone isn't okay, but I can't be mad at the murderer given what the CEO's done. Yeah, no, look. Star 607 says murdering someone isn't okay, but I can't be mad at the murderer given what the CEO's done. Look, that's what I'm saying. I'm not, sitting here being, self-righteous, saying like, how could anyone have any empathy or sympathy, for the shooter. I hear it. I'm going to interrupt my own self-dialogue. Let's star 607. Let's roll with this here, right here. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up another graphic, right? Let me move this over here so you guys can read it in the middle. So this is kind of what they're talking about, right? So this is what I mean. So a scathing report by a Senate panel was documenting some of UHC or UnitedHealthcare's practices, that there was this trend of refusing to pay for the care of older people recovering from falls or strokes, so post-acute care, right? And that the denial rates from UnitedHealthcare was cited to surge for that specific type of recovery care after a stroke or after a fall. So some of our most vulnerable elderly patients, or that is a crucial period in their post-acute process or recovery, they said that the rates of denials for that post-acute recovery care increased to 22.7% in 2022, which was essentially more than double the 10.9% of denials in 2020. So yeah, look. So that's I understand. Look at it right there. And look, I don't want to talk about things I'm not, too well researched on, but I've seen plenty of other posts out there that are indicating that UHC, it ranks at the very least, I don't think it's an overstatement to say this, one of the top deniers, I guess, for lack of a better term. But now I want to be careful. I don't know if that's because of the difference in volume or if they match that percentage by volume per thousands of claims. But from what I can see, from what I've seen out there, they do tend to be one of the top deniers. So I get it. I get it. It's crazy. So you see what I'm saying? It's not even my own anecdotes that I'm giving you about medications that have been denied, even in the recent weeks when I prescribe something. It's not even medications. Here's the crazy part, right? We wonder why America let's talk about mental health specifically. Mental health. I am a true believer, right? I'm going to sound weird, right? I'm a psychiatrist. My job is the main functions of my job is to prescribe medications, right? Obviously, I'd like to think I try to provide more holistic care when I'm talking to my patients. I work at a place where I can actually spend a half hour per follow-up visit, an hour per intake, unlike what I used to do at a brick and mortar hospital. I got about 8-9 minutes of FaceTime per follow-up. That's part of the reason I left. I couldn't work at the hospital anymore because how can I help someone who is in a crisis when they're saying, I want to end my life? I'm suicidal. I went through a sexual assault. I've been raped. I just lost a loved one. And this grief and mourning has now evolved into clinical depression. I'm paralyzed by anxiety. I'm paralyzed. My life is ruined by addiction. And I say, I got 8 minutes to talk to you, pal. And then you got to get out the door. So we better talk fast. And do you need refills? What else? And you got to talk in 8 minutes. I mean, it's like an assembly line. I just couldn't do it anymore. I got so burned out. I'm very fortunate that now I work at a place where, is it perfect? No, but I can spend now a half hour versus about 8 minutes per patient in follow-up. I get to see 2 patients an hour, where before they wanted me to see 4 or 5 patients an hour. So I think it's a win-win that I went to this place, to a new place that I'm working at, where I can actually take the time to talk to my patients like human beings, not treat them like a number in assembly line. But here's the crazy part, right? I believe in the field of mental health and psychiatry, there is an over-medication problem, okay? There's an over-medication problem. We are pushed to prescribe and essentially be pill pushers versus trying to understand, right, kind of multi-domain holistic care for our patients. And that's just sad. That's sad. And so even non-medicinal interventions in the field of mental health get denied and questioned by insurance companies. I can't tell you how many times per week we get a denial when I'm trying to recommend that a patient gets more frequent counseling and therapy services, when I want a patient of mine to enter a specialized program, things like intensive outpatient programs or partial hospital programs, like where you get help 3 times, 5 times a week in a specialized program, hoping that you don't have to then get hospitalized in like a locked hospital unit on a psychiatric unit. And again, it's almost viewed as like upfront intensive care that's almost preventative in nature. Let's not let it get so bad that you have to be admitted into a hospital, into a locked ward that is so disruptive to one's life, because that puts your job at jeopardy. I don't care what anyone says. Oh, there's FMLA and there's this and that. Do you think all managers and supervisors and workplace honor that stuff? They might honor it on face value, like a facade, and then find a different reason to let you go. So trust me when I say people, there's so much stigma still in mental health, right? There's all these problems, and I can't even get these lower level interventions, right? So it's not a surprise to me that we have this like revolving door of people going in and out of ERs. Like we can't even recommend these less acute interventions. These less acute interventions get denied by insurance companies. So non-medicinal interventions and specialized programs, more intensive therapy programs get denied. Prescriptions get denied. So I get it. It's so frustrating, and it's a broken system, right? And I'm not trying to play victim. I think physicians, let's get into this part, because physicians are getting a lot of hate, in the midst of this story, where I think physicians need to do a much better job it's fascinating to me how all these other industries have such a strong lobby. Like attorneys have such a strong lobby. The pharma industry, of course, multi-billion-dollar lobby. All these people, attorneys have lobbies, the pharma industry has lobbies. We have such a weak lobbying group as physicians, right? We just kind of shrug our shoulders, we move on. I don't even want to get into how some of the professional societies for, physicians are just an absolute joke. Absolute joke. People say, well, what about the AMA and this net? They're such a joke. They haven't done anything. Maybe that's harsh, but they haven't really moved the needle much. Maybe that's a more fair statement, right? So as physicians, we need to do something, right? We're not totally innocent of this. I don't think that we're the primary causality of all the problems in our healthcare system. I really don't. I'm not trying to be defensive. If anyone analyzed healthcare costs on a pie chart, I should have loaded up the pie chart. You should see the administrative bloat. How much money goes towards non-clinician staffing? If you ever looked at the pie chart of a hospital, it almost looks like a microcosm of our federal government or our state government. If you live in Illinois, then that's where you'd roll your eyes and laugh. All the administrative bloat. I can't tell you how many assistant vice presidents and how many mid-level managers each vice president has, and how many administrative assistants that each assistant vice president has. It's just on and on and on. And hospital systems are so top heavy. It's crazy. There's so much waste. There's so much bloat. Yet physicians, we put up with it, or we get frustrated like me. So I'm taking ownership. You put people like me there. We try to fight for change. We get burnt out, and then I leave. Right? Is the hospital that I left any better? I don't know. I have no clue. Probably not. They're probably doing the same thing they do. And then we try to flee for a greener grass where we can at least have a better family life balance, try to do a better job for our patients. But again, did I then change that system, the hospital system? Probably not, right? So it's a problem. Our field somehow, I don't know how. I would love to hear from smarter physicians and physician advocates than me. How do we do a better job of being a louder voice, right? And not be held hostage. It's hard because it's, again, not to play victim, but it's, we're battling like $1 trillion insurance industry. I don't know. Sadly, insurance dictates a lot of how healthcare is run. And it is frightening. It is frightening. So I get it when Star and others here, I'm not even arguing with your commentary about kind of the shadiness of the insurance industry, because I'm frustrated with them too. They make my life hard. They make my patients' lives hard. They basically handcuff us in terms of how we even practice medicine on a day-to-day basis. Okay. And even the examples I gave you, right? Those are for urgent issues, not life-threatening issues. Now imagine a life-threatening scenario and getting a denial, right? So let's shift it a little bit, right? So for those viewers who are watching after this, those of you who are still here live, have you run into this yourself? I'm being serious. Have you run into denials, onerous, long-winded prior authorizations that denied care? Maybe you got the care approved, but it got denied for weeks, for months, for years. So have you run into flat-out denials? Have you run into jumping through hoops? Oh, no, Star, no. Star says, thank you for understanding. No, I understand. This is horrible. This is horrible, right? And put it this way, I'm here. The biggest losers are the patients, right? The biggest losers are the patients. It's not like, so this isn't a sympathy story for the field of physician. I'm saying the biggest impact, the biggest people that get screwed over are our patients. That's who gets screwed over the most. Right? So I'd like to hear your stories, right? Do you know a loved one? Do you have a loved one? Do you yourself? Did you get screwed by some kind of ridiculous denial, a ridiculous delay in care? Has that happened to you? So does this story, right? This UnitedHealthcare CEO shooting, like when you hear the outcry and the reactions, does this hit home for you guys? Right? So please, if you have stories that you want to share, leave them in the comments section below. I'd like to hear them. I would. And if we move on to the next topic and you put something in the chat, I'll come back to so that we can pick up this conversation. But moving on, right? So again, let's end this on a positive note, guys, right? Let's well, I don't positive or brainstorming note, probably is a more appropriate term. All right. So rather than focusing on bitterness, on hate, feeling of justice or injustice, right? So how, instead of just praising a shooter, hating on the CEO, hating on UnitedHealthcare, and just being angry, right? How do we be productive? And we'll talk about that in the next minute, but let's go back. So Star says, thank you for sharing. And Star said basically that trying to get a diagnosis and care was delayed for half a year and had to pay an insane amount of money because the insurance didn't tell Star that it was an extra cost for personality tests. Yeah, I put it this way. Let me give you an example of what Star is talking about. Okay, if you didn't watch my video on stimulants and the stimulant epidemic, my opinion is there's a stimulant epidemic happening in America. Okay. This is how, pardon my French, this is how ass backwards, absolutely ass backwards American healthcare is. Let's use ADHD as an example. Okay. I'll try to keep this brief. All right. In America, it is easier to access a physician. I didn't say easy, I said easier. It's easier to access a physician or a nurse practitioner who will prescribe you Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse than it is to actually accurately get your ADHD diagnosed. Think about what I just said. It's easier to just get meds thrown at you than to actually access the more objective way to actually diagnose whether you even have ADHD or not. Okay, am I BSing? No, I'm not BSing. Ask folks. Ask folks who have ADHD, or ask folks who are at least attempting to rule in or rule out if they have ADHD objectively, okay? Because here's what I'm saying. If you go to someone like me or another psychiatrist, they're going to say, oh, you don't need testing. I could just diagnose ADHD just by looking at you and talking to you and doing a survey, and I use a diagnostic tool. Give me an effing break. Give me an effing break. Okay? When a psychiatrist says that to you, okay, what they're referring to are screening inventories or screening surveys. Okay, and trust me, I know these. I used to do clinical research. I know what a ASRS is, okay? I know what a modified Conners is. They all sound fancy. At the end of the day, those are surveys that ask you non-specific questions. I know them by heart. I could rattle off the questions. Hey, do you rarely, sometimes, often, most of the time, all the time? Pick one of those categories and answer these questions. Do you have problems paying attention for prolonged periods? Do you push off tasks and procrastinate? Do you misplace your wallet and personal belongings? Are you often late to things? Do you often talk over people? Do you have a hard time waiting your turn? Like, yeah, I mean, are those some signs and symptoms of ADHD? Sure, but those are also signs and symptoms about 9 other things. So you say yes to a handful, and the conclusion is, well, guess you could have ADHD. In the year 2024, going into year 2025 soon, that is the state of the art in the field of psychiatry and mental health, is asking you a checklist of a handful of questions, sometimes 15 to 20 questions. And if you answered yes to enough, they're like, well, at least have a moderate suspicion you might have ADHD. That anyone who tells you otherwise is sugarcoating it, or they're narcissistic and pretending and just trying to talk smoothly. But that's essentially what's happening, guys, okay? Now, I'm not saying that testing is perfect, but testing is a hell of a lot more objective than what I just described, okay? And so what Star is referring to is you then go get what is called neuropsychiatric testing. Usually, it's Actually, typically not done by a physician. It's usually done by a psychologist, a PhD or a PsyD psychologist. And then you go meet them once for a long interview. Then you come back for, on the short side, maybe 2.5 hours. On the long side, 4 to 5 hours of a lot of testing and more surveys. And then you get your results compared to people with similar age, similar educational background to see, like, where do you land when they're testing for reading comprehension to make sure you don't have dyslexia. When it comes to verbal learning, to make sure there's not an actual auditory processing issue. Checking your impulsivity, right? Checking all these different domains to rule in or rule out whether you have a specific learning disability in a specific area, or do you actually have a global ADHD, or none of the above. It's your perception you're having problems, but you're doing okay. And it may be better explained by just anxiety, some other causality, etc. So that is not easy to access. And so I know exactly what STAR is talking about: testing for autism, testing for ADHD. So many times, it's hard to even find a clinician. If you live in the metropolitan area like New York, Chicago, LA, yeah, sure, you'll find them. But what if you don't? What if you live in a rural area? What if you live pretty far from that metropolitan area? What if you don't have good insurance? What if you have no insurance? What if you have Medicaid? I actually am not shocked when I hear from some of my patients in those scenarios. They say, I'm on a 1-year wait list. I'm on a 1-year wait list and I can't afford the out-of-pocket cost because the insurance won't even cover all of it. You try to pay out-of-pocket for that kind of testing that I just described, you're talking low, and this is the absolute lowest I've ever heard of, $500, $600. And that's usually because it was done by some kind of trainee or at an academic center. But in private practice, I'm not shocked when I hear that kind of testing is going to cost you $2,000 to $3,000. What average working class American is going to say, I got disposable $2,000 to $3,000 to just drop because my insurance won't cover it, or I can't wait to see the in-network psychologist? That's what I'm talking about. So I know I went off on a tangent there, but STAR got me kind of riled up, okay? Kind of riled up because I know what STAR is talking about. STAR is not exaggerating. Oh yeah, see? So STAR says theirs was 590. That's low. That's on the low side. That's on the low side. I've seen it easily in multiple thousands of dollars. So Andy chimed in. Andy is one of the viewers here. Was in rehab for alcohol. Heartbreaking to see people have to leave. Yeah, heartbreaking to see people have to leave because insurance wouldn't cover any more time, even though they clearly needed it. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I mean, look, so I'm going to go off on a tangent because I want this to be interactive. So Andy, when I used to work on an inpatient unit, I used to work on inpatient and also in a detox setting before. And yeah, it's rough because we have, the physicians are trying to do their jobs, take care of the patients that are on these inpatient facilities. And then we have a whole department called utilization review, or we call them UR. They're literally on the phone with insurance every day, because it is common practice that when the patient gets admitted to the hospital on a psych ward or an addiction detox facility, insurance will call the UR or utilization review person on the staff every day or every other day and say, why can't you discharge him yet? Why do you need more days? Why do you need more days? Why can't you discharge them yet? What is the justification for keeping them? I kid you not. I kid you not, guys. This was a common scenario when I used to work on an inpatient unit. And trust me, it hasn't changed. I would get someone who survived a suicide attempt, a serious suicide attempt, okay, meaning medically complicated. They were in the intensive care unit, barely pulled through after a major overdose. They would then be transferred from the medical floor to the psychiatric ward. We would get a call 24 hours after their first night staying on the psych ward. Prove it to us. Argue. Make an argument. Tell us, why do they need more days on the inpatient psych unit? This person almost died. They almost took their life. They barely made it through, even medically, in an intensive care unit. They were intubated and had a machine breathing for them. They've essentially been in a coma. they're just even getting around to clearing their senses to even know what year it is, what month it is, what day of the week it is. They have not even had a chance to even sit there and let it sink in what just happened. And how are they not going to be in the same position the moment they leave the doors and get kicked out like Andy is talking about? And you're talking, why do they need more than one night in the psych ward? That is not a made-up scenario. Ask another psychiatrist who currently works in an inpatient unit. Ask him. I'm sure there's one on social media, on X or Insta. Go ask him. This legitimately is what happens sometimes even one night, one day after your admission into a psych unit. This is what's happening in the background. Arguing about why we need more than a day or two with someone who even survived a suicide attempt. Arguing with, in Andy's scenario, why someone needs more than a couple days to detox. Do you know how complicated alcohol withdrawal is? Do you know how much of a hell it is to come off of Oxy and heroin? Why do we need more than a couple days? Like, ridiculous. And sometimes we don't win. We don't win the argument, like Andy's saying. Andy's absolutely correct. We don't win the argument. And they'll say, no, too bad. Literally. You're like, what? They're like, too bad. They're like, we're not going to cover it anymore. So what happens then? Right? And again, I'm not saying this to defend a hospital. I'm saying this is what happens, just to illustrate to the people who want to know the behind the scenes. Then we get into an awkward situation where the utilization review, tells me or the physician, hey, insurance isn't paying for this anymore. Then the physician says, well, they're not ready. Well, if it's a good physician, let me rephrase, okay? If it's a good physician who's got common sense and a rational brain, we'll say, well, it doesn't matter to me. They can't leave yet. They're not ready to, right? And good physicians who have a spine will speak up and they'll say, too bad. They can't leave yet. I don't feel it's ethical to let them leave. And they'll continue to say, we need to keep them here and treat them for their detox, for their psychiatric issues. But what happens then, right? Then you get a call from the hospital who says, hey, we've eaten the cost now for 2 extra days. What are you doing? When do you expect to discharge him? We can't keep this up much longer. We need to end for this, because now the hospital's saying, now we're eating this cost and we're losing out for someone else who could fill that bed, who has insurance that'll cover it. So they see it as a double whammy. And now you're getting pressure from hospital administration. And they'll never go on the record saying we forced the doctor to discharge him. They'll never say that. They'll never put that in writing. Oh, but you feel the pressure. You feel the pressure. How come? What's going on? How soon? You said yesterday you're going to discharge him. It's already today. What's going on? Oh, and trust me, it wears on you. Even for someone who has a spine, even for someone who, wants to do the right thing. And what does that pressure do? It probably forces you to cut corners, probably forces you to speed up things a little bit faster than you'd like. And you're like trying to find the compromise of, I better get as much done as possible, knowing that the heat's coming down. They're forcing me to discharge him, right? And again, they'll never admit that that's what was said. They'll say, no, it's always up to the doctor. It's always up to the doctor. A doctor can say no to us. Oh yeah, like it's really like a mutual two-way conversation. Give me a break. And that's what happens. So yeah, that's what happens. But like I said, if you got any other things you want to share, guys, I'm all ears. So yeah, focus. Vanessa says, we can change the system by promoting healthy eating and exercise. I'm only going to the doctor for an injury. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, Vanessa. Look, I'm a prescriber. I hate taking medication. So like, I hear you, Vanessa. So Star says, so what do you think could help with this sort of problem in the healthcare insurance system? Well, let's talk about that. Yeah. So let's end up, like I said, I know we went over today, but you know what, guys, when these live streams, when there's engagement like this, I'm willing to stay on longer than the 30 minutes we've been doing. So let's end on a positive brainstorming note, guys. Okay. I know that's nothing revolutionary. I think we just have to uncouple profit and health. the healthcare system and profiteering. I look, there are good things that capitalism produces, but this is not one of the areas that I think we can just let that be intertwined anymore. To have access to basic care, to decency, the right to have access to treatments that can keep you healthy, to keep you alive, like we've got to couple that from private profiteering. So we have got to shout as a nation. We have to demand that we have nationalized universal health care. Okay. And trust me, I'm going to put a caveat. Do I have faith? Do I have faith that the government on the federal and state level can run it efficiently? No, I don't. And that's where I pause and I have some reluctance. In the past, that's why I've always I've typically, if you ask me 20 years ago, I'm dating myself now, the 22-year-old Andrew Kim, Dr. Kim, and you said, should we have national health care, universal? I would have said, no, hell no. And where that was coming from was, I don't trust the government. I don't, actually. I don't trust the government at all. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, left, right. I just don't trust the government in general. Doesn't even matter who's in charge. Government has never demonstrated to me that they are some pillar of efficiency, that they are a pillar of integrity without corruption, right? So that's the only qualm I have. But you know what? This also isn't working. And my mind has changed over the years, okay? Because this is not working. You know, if you don't have insurance through a workplace at a job, if you want decent, I'm not even saying top tier, decent healthcare coverage, not crap bare bones. I'm saying decent healthcare coverage where you're still probably going to have like a $5,000 deductible for your family or $3,000 deductible for yourself. It's going to cost you in Illinois. I don't know about other states. I don't know what states you guys are in Illinois. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. I'm not paying for it if it's not being subsidized through an employer. I used to be a 1099 contractor. I was paying, what was it? $1,200, $1,300 a month. I didn't say top tier. I said decent Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. That's insane. That's insane. And I'm not vilifying Medicaid, guys. Medicaid is better than not having any insurance, but I also know what the wait times are. I also know the limited resources and freestanding centers there are, right? I mean, so this system is broken. Okay, so I think even though I have minimal faith in our government, I think we got to move towards, we have to at least start by just having nationalized universal health care, right? And I already know, I'm not an idiot. It's going to be inefficient. There's going to be problems, but at least it's a starting point, okay? And then we can fix it. But until we get there, we're still going to have this broken system where profits override and supersede the priority, which is helping people, in my opinion, okay? Now, look, I don't know how we get there. I just know we got to demand it. And I just don't hear enough demand out there from both sides of the aisle, right? I think we've been hearing it from the left, probably not enough from the right. Again, I'm not talking about who's right or wrong. I'm just saying we need a unified cry and an outcry from our nation that we just demand that healthcare be something that is a given and a right to the citizens of this country, and not something that has to only be sought through to get good care through the private sector. So look, I have no clue. I hear stories all across the spectrum. So again, I would like to hear from you guys. Okay. Those of you who are maybe, it's crazy. There's some subscribers on my channel that are from other countries, right? So if you are someone who's watching this post-recording, or maybe someone here in the chat who's lived in other countries where there is some form of nationalized or universal healthcare, I'd really like to know, because you hear all kinds of crazy things, right? You hear one side of the spectrum from people saying, oh, it's great. I don't have to worry. I go to the hospital. I know that I'm not going to have some kind of hospital bill that's going to bankrupt me. It's wonderful to have that sense of psychological security. And then you get other people who are like, no, it's a facade. Like we have nationalized healthcare in name, but anything beyond primary care, if I want to see a surgeon, I want to see a dermatologist, an oncologist, like there's such a long wait. They make it hard for you to access specialized care. I'd rather be in America so that I could just find that specialist. So I get confused because I don't know. I hear random one-off anecdotes, right? I don't have a ton of physician friends or colleagues that are in other countries. I don't know a ton of other people that live in countries that have nationalized or universal healthcare. So I just hear random one-offs from people all the time. Okay. So even that being the case, I just think we have to move towards that. It won't be perfect. It'll be clunky. There'll be problems. People will complain, but at least we could build it up and at least we can improve it. Right. So you're from Morocco. So Othman, thank you for joining. Othman, you're from Morocco and it's the same. So what do you mean it's the same? Is it, do you guys have like a national healthcare system and you're saying it's just as crazy as the US system, or you're saying it's the same, that there is no national healthcare in Morocco? I have no clue. I'm genuinely asking. I'm so obtuse to, I live in the bubble of America and America's healthcare system. So if you're hearing me, Othman, give me some more details in the chat of how things are in Morocco. But yeah, but for other, so welcome too. So thank you for joining the chat. But for others who have experiences elsewhere, I'm just curious because I just want to hear. I look, you see, I'm not trying to pretend like I'm some healthcare system expert. There's obviously got to be much smarter people than me out there who are going to be architects of creating some kind of national healthcare system. I just know this methodology is just, it's just not set up for success and equity for this country. So, but yeah, I think we got to move towards there. I think we have to. I wish I had uploaded this graphic. Let me see here real quick. Excuse me, just browsing through my phone. I think, on a more micro level, right? I think if we make it more of a nationalized healthcare system, right? I was looking at a chart from, let's see here, from Citizen Health. And this was a study, an examination done in the year 2018 on U.S. national health expenditure, which was around close to $4 trillion. Okay. And the direct cost for, physician pay in hospital systems and healthcare systems was about 7.3% of that, close to $4 trillion. Okay. To the registered nurses, 6.1%. And 73% was categorized as everything else, meaning administrative costs, non-clinical administrators, okay, all the bloat. So of close to $4 trillion, 73% of $4 trillion of expenditure had nothing to do with the actual healthcare providers, meaning I'm just trying to illustrate that's how much bloat there is even in healthcare. So on a macro level, I think we need nationalized healthcare to make this a right and not a privilege to be taken care of for our healthcare problems. Okay. I think we need to make sure it's run efficiently. I know that won't happen at first because when's the last time you had confidence that anything was run efficiently in government? We could barely keep the post office running. Okay. And then on more of a micro granular level within the actual hospital systems themselves, we have to cut the fat and we have to cut the waste. I gave you those anecdotes earlier for those of you who missed it. I can't tell you how many assistant VPs there are in a single hospital. I lose track of people's letters after the names. There's like 15 AVPs and there's 13 directors. And each of those directors and AVPs have 3 administrative assistants apiece, right? And that doesn't even include the mid-level managers. It's just insanity. So there's got to be change, even at that micro level of the clinic itself, the hospital itself. We didn't even get into medication costs, right? I mean, I did a video before about medication costs. It's insanity, guys, right? I mean, everyone across the board, right? Even if you knew like the genuine costs of a Tylenol tablet, an ibuprofen tablet or capsule, right? I mean, you're talking like fractions of like pennies, right? Now you understand. Now you understand why like retail pharmacies encourage you to buy like the Walgreens branded acetaminophen, the Walgreens branded Benadryl. They love it when you buy that versus brand name Benadryl, brand name Tylenol, right? Because if you buy their in-house version of, Tylenol, right? The Walgreens acetaminophen, the markup, I mean, look, I'm just using this as a generic example. The markup's probably like 2,000%. I might actually be underestimating. Okay. So there's profiteering on every level, right? Hospitals, insurance companies, medication costs, pharmacies. I mean, the whole damn thing needs an overhaul. I mean, obviously, I can't, we need it because we need these resources and infrastructure in place to treat people and save lives. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not an idiot. Like, there's still good within all the chaos and crap, okay? But God, I mean, it's almost so messed up to the point where we almost might be better off just burning the whole sucker down and starting from scratch. Because I mean, it is just messed up from A to Z. So I think we just got to make the leap and just say there's healthcare for all. We know it's not going to be perfect, but we go from there. At least there's like a foundation. It's going to be an imperfect, complaint-filled, inefficient foundation, but we got to make the leap. We got to make the leap because if we don't, we're just going to perpetuate what we're doing right now. So, okay, guys, I know we went double the time of our typical live stream, but I don't mind. I don't mind. When we have engagement like this, I love it. So hopefully I gave you something to think about, some thought-provoking stuff. So I appreciate all of you guys for checking in. This is why we call it the Insomniacs Livestream, because on the East Coast, it is tomorrow. So happy Sunday to you guys. That's 12:32 in the morning. For those of you here in Central Time, it's 11:30. For those of you in other parts of the world, I don't know what time it is for you guys, but try to go to sleep soon. I know that you guys are obviously night owls like me, staying up, but I hope that you can get some sleep. I really appreciate you guys putting some entertainment in my life with the engagement here. I appreciate you guys and for supporting me. But yeah, I just want to keep it real on this channel, hear from you guys, just learn more. I'm here to learn too, right? I don't, like I said, I don't know everything. I'm just here to learn with you guys and just here to commiserate with you guys. So I appreciate you for joining in. Please like, please subscribe. And, I'll try to have the next show up for Tuesday. So when I put that up later, bookmark that, join me again Tuesday night. Thank you, Star, for joining in as well. So until next time, guys, let's think about what we talked about. I would love to hear some creative solutions from anyone out there. And see you later, Andy. Thanks for joining in. So until next time, guys, thanks again for tuning in, and see you guys next time on the next episode of the Insomniacs Livestream. Take it easy. Have a good night.